You thought I forgot, didn't you? I kind of did. I usually do a quarterly life update after the end of each update. So by the first week of the new quarter, which would have been a few weeks ago because it's almost the end of October now. But anyway, I am here. So I've got a lot to share with you about all the things that have happened since, I guess it's June, because July, August, September. Yeah. So I'm just going to get right to it and start off with some things going on with my business. Then I'll talk about things in my personal life, including some trips that I took this summer and all that jazz. This is, if you've listened to these recaps before, then you know how I do. So first, I just want to give a shout out to my sister, Daj. She is my co-host on the Come On Son podcast. If you're not subscribed to us, there's a link in the show notes for the Come On Son pod, which is also our Twitter and Instagram handles. So please check it out and let me know what you think. All right. So one of the things that I started thinking about this summer was becoming a real estate investor. And I never really thought about that before. I never wanted to be a landlord or anything like that. Never wanted to deal with tenants. But I know if you have property management, you really don't have to worry about tenants too much as far as the day-to-day. So just with all of the investing that I have started doing with investing in stocks and things like that, and really ramping that up because I've had so much extra money just sitting around. And, you know, banks aren't really paying much, haven't been paying much for years in savings accounts. I've decided to keep a certain amount in my checking and savings accounts and put all the rest of it in the stock market. And even though the stock market is down now, we're entering a recession, I'm just like, this is a good time for me to do this. You know, a lot of stocks are on sale. And, you know, if you do your research, you know, you have a financial advisor, you do your own research well, you know that this is not the time to stop investing. You might want to like switch up what you're investing in, but to completely stop doing it because it's a down market makes no sense. Because it will come back up. It always does. It's been umpteen cycles of the stock market, you know, bull markets and bear markets. So yeah, but I thought of doing the real estate investing as an extension of all that. And it's just not working out for me because even though my credit scores are quite high, like I'm really not that far from an 800. I'm less than 20 points from an 800 credit score. I cannot get a HELOC to save my life. And I have a lot of equity in my home and want to use a HELOC instead of cash out refi. Because if I get a HELOC, it's a line of credit, just like a credit card. So you're only paying interest on the amount that you use. And if I don't need the whole entire line of credit from my home, from the equity in my home, then I can like use it for down payments or closing costs or whatever. And then as my tenants pay, you know, I can use that money to pay it back or whatever. So that's a whole spiel. I could do a whole episode about just the real estate and stock investing that I've been doing, but I really ramped up on all that this summer. But I think I'm just going to take a break from trying to push the issue with real estate investing because I do need a little more money from, you know, my equity in my home, and I just can't seem to tap it. I'm not reaching anyone, whether it's banks or private lenders that have terms and non-shady practices. And I'm the one with the money. I'm the one that wants it. I'm the one that has the demand. So it's up to me to decide if I want to play with your terms or not. And so I'll just pass. I'll just wait until something better comes along, and maybe it'll be 2023 or 2024, but I'm not going to push the issue. The other thing I want to talk about with my business and personal business stuff that's not related to my job is that I completed an accessibility course. I think I started it in June. I can't remember if it was June or July, maybe July. I don't know. But it was quite intense. Of course, it was from the UX Content Collective, which I am a member of. I grade student essays of people who are looking to either become UX writers or content designers. Those terms are somewhat synonymous. That's another tangent. But if you are trying to become that or trying to learn more about it, definitely accessibility is something that you really need to know more about. And we, you know, me and my sister, we did a deep dive of accessibility and what it is and how it plays out in everyday life on a recent episode of the Come On Son pod, which I have a link in the show notes for you to check out. Now, at my job, there's been a reorg, and it's kind of painful. Like, it didn't affect me directly, but it still affected me big time. And now we have to change the way we work. I'm actually, as I record this, less than a month away, really less than 2 weeks away from when my original contract was supposed to expire. They've extended me into 2023. I don't know exactly how long. You would think that my agency would tell me these things, but they don't. So my manager at my job is the one that kind of told me, and also just got some emails that said, please extend, this person's IT access until whatever date. So very interesting ways of communicating whether or not I'm going to continue working there or not. But I can't really accept just that as proof. I've got to take it with a grain of salt because of things that happened with this reorg. Namely, the only thing I'm really going to speak about the reorg is that there were, big surprise, layoffs. One of the people that was affected by the layoff is someone that I worked with almost every day. She was on my team, and she's a lovely person. And she too started out, as most of us do, with a 6-month contract. And so her contract was to expire in September. And this reorg was announced the first week of October. So in essence, I didn't get all these details, but obviously at some point between August and September, someone told this woman that she was being retained and that she was good to go. So imagine all of our surprise when the first week of October, we get announcements about layoffs and she's one of the people that's affected. I think it's super, super shady, not to mention the fact that the executive leadership decided in their infinite wisdom not to even tell the regular managers, line managers, I guess, like the people that I work for, did not bother to tell the managers about this reorg at all until 2 days before they announced it. 2 days. So the managers were not consulted about the changes that were happening. And there were way more changes than just the layoffs, which is a big deal. But just to keep this in perspective, those of us that are not laid off, we've got a lot to switch as far as like our thinking and our ways of working. And it's a lot to handle. So I'm really not that pleased with my job. And I'm really looking for ways to still do the work that I do, but not in corporate. I've been in corporate now for 23 years, and I have this freelance entrepreneurial spirit. I just have a personality, whatever, that is just like really not compatible with corporate. I've been trying to make it work, but maybe it's just time for me to pull the plug. So 2023 will show us all how that pans out. But I am definitely looking for avenues to do my work outside of the corporate landscape. Now, on to things a little bit happier, but still related to my writing work. I attended not 1, not 2, but 4 conferences in the span of less than 30 days. So out of these 4 conferences, I attended 3 of them virtually, and 3 of them were in person, but one of them actually doesn't have to do with my work. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to mention it because these were all within the same 30-day period. So it started off, the first one was Inbound, which I've talked about before. If you search the name of this podcast and Inbound, or if you go to my YouTube channel, which is Kicking It with Doree, you just go to YouTube, and then after the slash at the end, you type in Kicking It with Doree, like it's one word. Okay, no spaces, no dashes. And I'm the only person that's going to come up, a picture of me. And there are some Inbound videos there from a couple years ago. So anyway, this was the first Inbound that was in person since 2019. So that's the last time I was there. I did not attend in person this year, but it was fab as always. I mean, last year it was virtual, and the closing speaker was Oprah, you guys. It was freaking Oprah. Okay, she did not disappoint. And then they took it even another notch higher. They said, you know what? Oprah is the best, but we're going to do even better, which doesn't even seem possible. So this year, their closing speaker was President Barack Obama. Okay. And again, I was not there in person. I have seen him in person before, approximately 1 week before he was elected as president the first time. He came to our city, And I saw him there. We were actually in a baseball field outside at night. And he gave like, a 20, 30-minute speech. His wife was there. It was amazing. And then the following week, he was actually elected for the first time. And I remember somebody was standing in line when we were waiting to see Barack, and they were watching the Single Ladies video on their phone. That was a brand new song then. So just to give you some perspective, 2008, what was going on. But anyway, Inbound is always amazing. I always recommend it. It's a marketing conference. It's about inbound marketing, of course. But I go there and represent as a voice actor and as a freelance writer. The second conference that I attended, and this one I went to in person, was the following week, which was Content Marketing World. And guess what it was about? Content marketing. So thinking about from the standpoint of being a writer, SEO, blogging, and other kinds of content strategy and ways to push out content to try to get that inbound marketing, so to speak. Both of these conferences are marketing conferences, but I have to say, I've been to Inbound like 3 or 4 times, and this was my first Content Marketing World. And which one did I like better? There's no contest. Definitely Inbound. Definitely. I'm not saying Content Marketing World was a bad conference. There were a few hiccups, but just the whole vibe, everything about it, I really love Inbound way more. So shout out to you, HubSpot. The third conference I went to was actually not work related, but I'm going to mention it because it's a conference. And this was virtual. It's called Exodus Summit. And this is related to what I talked about last time, where I said I'm considering like ways to become either a digital nomad or an expat and eventually leave the country at some point once my daughter is out of college, like to live outside of the US permanently. I just don't know where yet. I have to obviously visit some countries, see what vibe is good, what's going on with the taxes, what's going on with language and economics and, socialization and relationships and things to do, all that jazz. I will not be giving up my US citizenship at any time. But I may, if I find another country that I love more, I may apply for a second passport. We'll see. That's way out in the future. But Exodus Summit is a summit it was like 3 or 4 days. It's put on by Rashida Dow and Stephanie Perry. They are co-founders of the Exodus Summit. And both of them are expats. They're nomadic. They don't live in the US. They're Black women helping Black women. Simply put, helping us decide where we want to go, helping us gain more ease, helping us get out of that excellence trap that we've been raised with, where we have to do, 2-3 times better than our non-Black counterparts. And, we have to hold it down for these Black men, the ones that aren't doing for us or whatever. So, yeah, it's very supportive. It's very cathartic. And it gives us a lot of information because there's so many Black women that are already permanently living outside of the U.S. that are or were U.S. citizens that report back to us and, share, tools and tips with us. And it was a big love fest, but it was a lot of knowledge. And it gives people hope to know that even if you're being treated unfairly here, which of course, Black people in the U.S. have always been not treated the best, then, there's hope. There's other places you can go and go where you're treated better. The fourth and final conference that I'll share with you is Button. And it's an interesting and cute name, like cute as a button, haha. The reason it's named Button is because it's a content design conference. It's for content designers and UX writers, anyone in content that writes for websites, apps, user interfaces. And so obviously, when we're writing for user interfaces and web and all that and mobile, one thing we have to definitely write are the words that go on the CTA buttons. So it's cute. It was in Seattle, but I attended virtually via an equity scholarship. So shout out to all the sponsors that made my registration possible, because it is, to me, an expensive conference. And the fact that I qualified for that scholarship, I was able to, Brain Traffic puts on Button, and they also put on another conference in the spring called Confab, which is for content strategists. But it's usually the same audience. And it's the same people behind the scenes. But I want to shout out those sponsors of Button that made it possible for me and some of my colleagues to attend, especially as a contractor. If I was working for a company as a full-time employee, possibly they would sponsor me. But shoot, I was an employee at Nokia for 22 years. And after the first 5, they stopped all that. So that's even a toss-up these days, what kind of benefits you're going to get. So pay attention to that. It is benefit enrollment time, y'all. Anyway, I'm going to move on from work and talk about some fun stuff now, some funner stuff. So on a personal note, I talked about dancing in my last episode for National Dance Day, which was in September. And so I was able to teach line dance for the first time in August after waiting for years. I talked about that in that episode. I was able to teach again in October, this past, week or two. Yeah, this past week. And I'm going to teach again in a couple weeks. So I'm just subbing for people that can't teach their own formats or whatever. And I pretty much refused to get certified in Zumba because I heard about what that's like, how expensive it is. And a lot of the instructors that I know that teach Zumba, they just make up their own dances anyway. They don't even teach the ones that come with Zumba or whatever. So yeah, I just love dancing and it's great for my mental health as well as my physical, health. So happy about that. And you know what I'm going to talk about next, y'all. You know what I'm going to talk about next. I always talk about trips during these quarterly updates because I'm always going somewhere. There's just not a lot to do where I live. And I want to see the world. And this summer, I kind of got to do that a little bit. So in June, me and my sister went to Milwaukee. We were going to go to a comedy show, and somehow the comedy show was canceled and she wasn't notified. So I was glad she was able to get her money back, but that was a surprise. But one of the other things that we did while we were there, and it was just for a weekend, we went to, there's no Laverne and Shirley Museum in Milwaukee. Don't know why. There should be. There's like a bobbleheads museum, you guys, but there's not a Laverne and Shirley Museum in Milwaukee. I'm like, really? Come on. Like, rest in peace, Penny Marshall, okay? Because they deserve respect. But I was able to go to the Lakefront Brewery, and they use that, I can't remember what it's called, but whatever the thing is where the bottle's moving by itself along the track, the Laverne and Shirley show used that thing, whatever it's called, that mechanism, that machinery, in that opening sequence and in some episodes of their show, I believe. So we also, in June, went to see Trevor Noah. I think it was the following weekend or 2 weeks later. And he's been on the Back to Abnormal, or he was on the Back to Abnormal tour. And so we went to Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, and that was cool. But the day that we arrived was the day that the Supreme Court announced their decision about overturning Roe. So he talked about that a bit in his set, which I'm sure wasn't planned. And I think I may have mentioned this earlier. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's okay. You may not have heard or you may not remember. It was a good time. June was a good time. In July, I got to leave the country, went to Toronto, and I know the natives say Toronto, so I may or may not pronounce it the same every time. But we went to see Dua Lipa at the Scotiabank Arena. And we also went to Niagara Falls, but we just stayed on the Canada side instead of going to the other side. I actually went to college my first year only in Buffalo, New York. So I really wasn't that far from Niagara Falls, but just never made it. So at least I got to see it now from the other side. And because we were in Canada, my daughter was with us. It was my parents, my sister, me, my daughter, and my niece. They're only like a year or so apart. But my daughter is 19. And so she is legally old enough to drink alcohol in Canada, even though she's not legally allowed to do so in the US. So we had our first drink together, y'all. And, she was around all the rest of us adults. Everything was fine. It wasn't like she was driving or doing anything, but it was cute. And I put a picture on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you can see that. In August, my little niece, who's in her 30s, I remember the day she was born, and I just love her so much. She got married at the end of August in upstate New York. So we went to the wedding and got to see the fam, and that was a nice time, even though it was like out in the boondocks, and we felt like, the killer could come out at any time and get us. Yeah. And I mentioned earlier about Content Marketing World that I went in person, but I didn't say where it was. It was in Cleveland. So to me, that counts as another trip because I apparently don't live anywhere near Ohio, haven't been to Ohio since we visited the Christmas Story Museum maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. So that was nice to be able to see more of the city. Last night, I just mentioned that we saw Dua Lipa when we went to Toronto, and my sister and I went to another concert last night. It was Mary J. Blige. It was right here where we live, like maybe like 15 minutes from where we live. And it was really, really cool. You know, I always enjoy Mary. You know, she always kills it. She killed it at the Super Bowl. She never disappoints with her performances. But I was just thinking about the first time that I saw her and all that has happened since then. You know, the first time that I ever saw Mary J. Blige on stage at a concert was for the Bad Boy Tour in 1995, y'all. That was almost 30 years ago. Like, I mean, 1 year, you go through a lot. 30 years, okay? 30 years. She shared the stage with all the other Bad Boy artists, though. So it wasn't like I got the full Mary experience because everybody did like 4 or 5 songs. So when I say everybody, that's everybody that was on Bad Boy. Mary at the time, Puffy, Mace, The Lox, Craig Mack, Faith, Lil' Kim, and Junior Mafia. And you know if Lil' Kim and Junior Mafia that were there, you know, and Faith, that you also know who was there. Biggie Smalls. So rest in peace, Biggie Smalls and Craig Mack. I believe everyone else is still alive. And it was just an epic thing that will, you know, can never be repeated, of course, but really, really had a blast last night at Mary's concert. And she's got a new album that I don't really know the words to the songs, but she did all the ones we know. I mean, half the time she all she had to do was dance. She just like didn't have to even sing because we were singing over her. Okay. Like that's just what it is when you're a fan, right? Now what's coming up for me is going to be as far as trips and things that I'm looking forward to. I signed up for a race. I know I mentioned this last time. I signed up for a race that's the weekend of Veterans Day, and it's at the Outer Banks, which is in Nags Head, North Carolina. So I'm going to be doing an 8K, which is approximately 5 miles. I've been back to training, and I'm so proud of myself because last weekend I did a long run of 5 miles, which isn't really a long run for me, but it's longer than the usual ones I do during the week. And I actually ran nonstop. It's only the second time I've ever run 5 miles nonstop. Any other time that I've run that long or longer, I've taken some short walking breaks, which is not a big deal. It's not bad if you stop or you start walking part of it. It's just that you don't want to, you know, keep walking forever because then you're defeating the purpose of your training, right? So, you know, intervals are cool. Listen to your body if, you know, you're not used to running or whatever, but that's what I'm doing. I'm excited about it. And then the thing that I'm most excited about is my mini sabbatical in Medellin, Colombia. So I will be going with a group called El Camino Travel, which is a female-only based group. So anyone that identifies as a female can go on this trip, an adult female. And we're going to go first to Cartagena, Colombia. And then a few days later, we'll make our way down to Medellin. And I actually decided I want to stay longer. 1 week in another country like this is not good enough for me. Canada, that's one thing. But Colombia, and it's like, you know, Thanksgiving in December time, it's going to be a beautiful weather, way more beautiful than where I live or in Canada. So I'm going where the weather's good and the people are nice and the food hopefully is right too. So yeah, that's my mini sabbatical. I'll be gone for a month. And I got me an Airbnb for the time for those 3 weeks that I'm not with the group. So it'll be cool. I'm really, really excited about it. I've been studying YouTube videos of different YouTubers and, you know, expats that have either visited or live in Colombia to get the inside scoop for the past few months. So I'm not going in blind. And that's it for my summer recap, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you are inspired to, you know, get something in these last couple of months of 2022. Reevaluate how your year has been, what changes you want to make. But I will be back again in December, and I will be recording in Medellin, Colombia, an episode for my, actually, will I be in Medellin? No, I won't. And I might even go ahead and sneak in a podcast while I'm in Medellin just to talk about some of the things that I'm experiencing and maybe any culture shocks that I might have or first thoughts. Who knows? I might even get on camera. Let's see. I'm not going to promise anything, y'all. But just stay tuned because no matter what, in December, I will be doing my yearly review and quarterly recap, all that jazz. And I will be talking about my experience in Medellin. All right. Take it easy.